Decision day is here. Today, voters have been casting their ballots in one of the most contentious midterm elections in recent memory. Control of Congress is at stake, and whatever the outcome, it will have a major impact on the second half of President Biden's term. And joining me now is Margaret Brennan, moderator of CBS News' Face the Nation. We love having her on, not just because she's the moderator, but also her name is Brennan, and there aren't enough Brennans in television, so we might as well get them all in one room at the same time. Thanks for being here, Margaret. We really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
First of all, let's talk about voter turnout. We all know how important it could possibly be. What are we hearing, and what's driving people to the polls today?
We really are seeing a surge in turnout for midterm races. Historic in nature, we've already seen 43 million people cast their votes in places that are going to be closely watched, like the state of Georgia. We've seen early voting really come in at record numbers. Now, this is an election that's not about electing a president, but it's about control of Congress. And we're also seeing there are so many races to replace governors in certain states in the country. But it's 35 Senate seats that are up for grabs. And right now, CBS News has been expecting that Republicans will gain control of the House, and that in the Senate, it's really a toss-up. So there are some very closely watched races. We likely will not have a firm answer on who has that majority by the end of the evening. We expect to be broadcasting well into the early hours, and that it may take a day or two, but that is part of the system, and that is by design. It is not a flaw.
Absolutely. Margaret, we've heard a lot about election deniers. What do voters need to know about how important it is that both sides accept the results of the elections, however crazy that question sounds? How important is that?
Well, elections are foundational to our democracy. These institutions don't work if we lose faith in them and if we sit on the sidelines and don't participate. In fact, even though I know sometimes the news is too much, it's overwhelming because of the amount of change we are seeing. And according to our polling, 79% of Americans describe the country as out of control. The way to assert that control is to stay part of the democratic process. Look, if you lose an election, you don't get to reject the results. That is part of what makes democracy work, the idea that we settle our differences at the ballot box. And so this is why we've spent so much time making sure we are clear in what we know, clear in the expectations, and also make clear that those who are questioning the 2020 election still or raising doubts about its integrity, that this was the most litigated and the most scrutinized presidential election, and now in 2022 there is a tremendous amount of scrutiny once again, and tonight Homeland Security is again saying they have confidence there's no credible threat to election infrastructure.
Yes, Margaret, because as you know, there have been so many questions about threats to poll workers and election officials. And let me ask you this, you cover the world, yes, not just the nation. How is what happens in this country, what's happening with our elections, Donald Trump, et cetera, how are we perceived now by our allies now that we've had a few years of Joe Biden?
Well, it's about the state of our country and our democracy, not just the leader who is commander-in-chief. And a lot of these divisions and partisanship haven't been overcome. And that calcification of our divisions is something I hear concern about from our allies, and concern that it's exploited by our adversaries. It is hard for America to project power and to say that we are a beacon of democracy when you have these kind of internal events, risks of political violence. You know, I cover countries like those. I didn't think I lived in one of them. This is a real concern. And that's why we want to be so clear that people need to go out and vote and have faith and integrity. And if we see, for example, a recount, if we see a day or two to go through ballots and verify them, that is far different. That is run-of-the-mill stuff. and to expect some of these things as part of the functioning of democracy. It doesn't mean that if your candidate didn't win, that you should say, the entire democratic process needs to go out the window.
Yeah, even the president of Brazil, who was defeated, actually accepted defeat, which we were all surprised by, and very well said that you would never think that it would be in this country that this would be happening. A final question, if I can get one for you. Former President Trump, we saw last night, he was teasing all over the place. What are we hearing about the former president? I gather we're going to get this announcement in a couple of weeks that he's running again?
Well, the 45th president has made clear to aides and allies that he is desiring another run for the White House. And ever the showman, it's the which day and which form will he finally make the announcement at his rallies. He's very much leaned into the idea that he's going to get into the race. But this is something that I think the day after the midterms is when the race for the White House begins in many ways. I had Chris Sununu, the Republican governor of New Hampshire, on the program Sunday, and I asked him about what Trump jumping into the race at this early stage would mean for the party, and he laughed. He said it's a very bad idea, just practically speaking. You don't do it at the busiest time of the year, right between an election and the holidays. Wait until the new year, and he didn't think it would dissuade other Republicans from challenging the former president. So in some ways tonight, we will see a test of the staying power of MAGA Republican movement. Donald Trump's not on the ballot, but he does remain a kingmaker in some ways within his own party. In some ways, that's going to be tested tonight. But a lot of the challenges facing our country go beyond just that man and that moment. They continue, and we've been talking a lot about that, the level of anger and anxiety among voters right now about real things happening in the country. And I think that's really what a lot of people vote on, the kitchen table issues that impact them most directly.
Absolutely. Margaret Brennan, very well said. And thank you so much. Margaret Brennan, moderator of Face the Nation. You'll be on CBS News all night long. We will be tuning in, and we hope everybody else is too. Margaret, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being with us. Stick around for CBS News New York throughout the evening, because we're going to be right here. We're going to bring you election results from the tri-state area, from here, not just here, but from around the nation. I'm going to be sitting here with a bunch of experts really boring down on all the coverage. And following our newscast, live coverage will begin right here at 8 p.m. with our first update of the night after polls start to close. And we'll continue across all our platforms through the 11 p.m. hour and beyond, I'm told. I'm Dick Brennan. Stick around.